Hey guys, it's April 27th, Sunday VEDA, and today I'm doing an Ask Biblegirl. Okay, my question today comes from BCE 42906, and by the way, just thank you for being such an involved person on my channel. You're always commenting, asking me questions, and I love that. It makes things really exciting when people are interested in what I do. His question is, what is your view of Christian liberties and what we can partake in? There is much debate in the evangelical circles on whether or not Christians are able to do things like go to R-rated movies, smoke, drink alcohol, etc. Okay. So my opinion on this has to do with a couple things. One, I kind of thought of this idea when I was in high school, and I like it. It's, if you found out that your pastor, or when you're in high school, your youth pastor, knew you were watching this movie, or listening to this song, or something like that, would you feel embarrassed, like you had done something wrong? And that's definitely something I think is a good, judge. I tend to think there are a couple things to get out of stuff. I think certain films, certain television shows, books, and things like that can talk about some pretty terrible, terrible things. They can talk about sex, they can talk about drugs, they can talk about just going into a very dark place. But I feel if the lesson they're teaching is one that leads us somewhere, then it's pretty much a good thing to watch to an extent. For instance, even things that don't teach the cleanest, cuttest message, like I've seen Sweeney Todd, not on stage. I've been told they're quite different. The film by Tim Burton. And so it's very, very bloody and very, very just sad and cannibalistic. I think there's this intriguing lesson about the human spirit in this piece, because it shows our actions towards other individuals can completely destroy a person, and in turn can destroy so many persons. What the judge does to Benjamin Barker by putting him in jail and taking his wife and doing what he does to his wife completely destroys Barker, making him Todd and making him insane. It causes the deaths of dozens and dozens of people. It causes the life of a girl to be degraded into not knowing how to live, and that her ability to find any love is an escape, and she doesn't believe in peace. And I think when you show the effects that dark actions take, it actually has a moral to the story, and it has a value, because I think the whole point of that story is to see how we can't take what we want. We just go after what we want without considering other people. The whole world falls apart, and that's what happens in Sweeney Todd. So I think there's this very intriguing, very heart-wrenching story and lesson in Sweeney Todd. And that's where I think we need to go. I think we need to come to a place where we can learn lessons and grow from the material that we're presented with. I don't like a lot of popular music, because a lot of popular music, and a song in its own being like a 3-minute thing, isn't teaching you, isn't having any value whatsoever, because it's like, if they're just talking about, oh yeah, sex is awesome, woo, and premarital sex, then it has no value, it has no lesson, nothing to grow or gain or change from. We can learn about the light so much from seeing it absent. But when the song's just about drunkenness and ridiculousness, it has no lesson. So I think what a Christian needs to do is not necessarily worry about arbitrary rating systems, because music and television shows and movies and video games and all that stuff just doesn't have it. Isn't always, a value. There's certain movies that are rated PG that, that should have been PG-13. There's certain things that are PG-13, that should have been R, and there's certain things that shouldn't be available at all to minors whatsoever, but are. I think we need to look at things really carefully. The music and books and the movies and the TV shows we're watching, because they all do affect us, and we need to consider the things we're learning. And yes, a lot of times TV and movies and all this stuff is for fun. And I don't really have a problem necessarily watching a scary movie or something that's created just for fun. You're adrenaline pumping. But if the whole point is to watch people be ridiculously sexual and show things that you're not, are wrong, you need to not partake in that. I know I'm not really specific, and I'm not really specific about the things I watch or listen to. I tend to just try to look at things on their merit. And I may not necessarily be doing it right or wrong, and I know I'm all over the place right now. But I also think it has to do with what's going to cause you to stumble. I believe you talked about smoking and drinking and alcohol, not this. Okay. Now, I made a conscious decision before I turned 21 that I was not going to drink alcohol at all. And I actually made that decision as a child, and I took it pretty seriously, because I made this promise to God as a little girl in 4th or 5th grade, somewhere around then, that I wouldn't drink. So I don't drink, because I promised God I wouldn't. I feel I have a responsibility as a person in children's ministry to be an example to kids, and specifically younger children sometimes cannot understand the difference between drunkenness and just drinking alcohol. And I don't want to bump into a kid at Albertsons and seeing a ton of alcohol in my cart and having them question stuff, because I'm part of their spiritual development. And my causing them to question something could hamper their spiritual development. It could make them think, well, if Miss Ashley can do that, then what's the point of me not cheating on my test or something? I don't want to cause issues there. And honestly, I've seen people I know and love act really stupid. So I don't want to end up that way. However, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to drink. I think it's wrong to get drunk, but not to drink. I think when it comes to alcohol or things like that, we need to make our own personal decisions, because, Christ drank. Just didn't get drunk. So we need to look what's best for myself, what's best for my situation. Am I going to cause the people around me to stumble? And that's a really big thing about all this stuff. We go to Scripture, and Paul is talking about the weak brother and the strong brother. And the weak brother is actually the one that needs to stop doing all this stuff. So what we need to do is, if we see someone in our lives, like if you know someone that struggled with pornography, you're not going to put a movie on that even goes anywhere near that, even like heavy making out. You're not going to put on a movie that has that kind of stuff, because it's going to cause your brother or sister to stumble. If you know someone that's in Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff, because they had a real issue with that, we're not going to drink wine at a party because it's disrespectful. We need to care about the other people in our lives, make sure that the things we're learning are good, even if the story is told in a way that has some darkness in it. It's just good, so we can learn a valuable lesson, a moral from what we have. Sorry. And we need to, if we're kind of questioning it, if you get to a point where you're really uncomfortable, maybe it's time to turn it off. Or if you get to a place where you're really not sure, prayer is great. There's a part in Scripture that talks, actually a couple parts in Scripture where they talk about if your eye causes you to sin, cut your eye off. If your hand causes you to sin, cut your hand off. And for some people, isn't watching a scary movie isn't going to take you someplace dark. For some people, drinking alcohol isn't going to hurt you. For some people, these things are just a thing you do every now and then, and it's fine. But if you know it's not, you need to remove yourself from those situations. Don't put yourself in situations that you know are going to personally tempt you. Because everyone's different and everyone works at a different pace and lifestyle. But there are a few things, like you asked about smoking. And I personally think smoking altogether is bad because it specifically is messing with your body, your temple. Drinking can actually, in small amounts, there's a lot of good things that wine and things like that can do for you. But smoking is just hurting you, and physically hurting yourself for no reason. It doesn't matter. And particularly with smoking, cigars, and stuff like that, the secondhand smoke is hurting other people. And like I said, we need to think about how we're affecting other people. So I rambled a lot, but you got something out of what I was saying about liberties and how we need to go straight and what that looks like. Okay, you guys have comments, put it below. You might have questions because I was not very specific. And if you have a question for an Ask Bible Girl, I would love to answer them. Put them in the comments below, PM me, and I will see you tomorrow for another day of VEDA. Bye.